Hey guys, this is Brian Quee from medicalcodinggeek.com, and you have now reached part 4 of the student interview and student mentoring session with Norma. In today's final session, this is the last part for her assignment. We really go over the real main question. How does all of this, if you haven't watched the previous 3 videos, I highly suggest you watch that before watching this one. It all comes to the final question of how it all relates to understanding medical terminology. Now, I go a bit more in why medical terminology is important, but also taking medical terminology, how it applies when she finally goes into the health information technology program, specifically when she takes her medical coding courses. I also give her advice to which course she really needs to focus on if she really wants to get into medical coding. And the answer really is not medical coding. So if you want to find out what course you really need to focus on in order to truly succeed in medical coding, please watch the video. If you have watched the previous videos, please give them a like. If this is your first time watching these videos, thank you, but make sure you watch those previous videos. Also consider subscribing to the Medical Coding Geek channel so that way you get notified for future videos. Also, I do want to jump in and also let you guys know that we also have premiered our podcast channel, the Not Elsewhere Classified podcast. So if you guys can please check that out. I just recently posted the 100th episode. So without further ado, here is part 4 of Norma's interview with me. Enjoy.
What talents do you possess to be successful in your position?
I think I talk about that. Being able to change.
Okay.
Being
Open, yeah.
open to change. Can't be closed. You have to be. I think like there are individuals who are like, we gotta do it this way all the time.
Yeah.
And so with what you're doing in our field, there's so much change. I mean, when I first started, they were just thinking about the electronic health record. So when I got into it, there are physicians who are like, no, I'm not open to this technology. Well, look
Yeah.
now. They weren't open. Now they're behind. Now you have tech savvy young physicians that are in this role. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So number 4, talents, be open to change. Number 2, as we're doing now, good communication. That's what I think is very important, at least in this role. In this role specifically, change and anticipation. Those are, but you won't know what to anticipate unless you have good education and you're continually educating yourself. Because if you don't know what to look for, you can't anticipate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says, what are your greatest attributes to your position?
The attributes that I brought into the position was 12 years of CDI, 12 years of clinical documentation integrity, 12 years of understanding different types of cases. When I mentioned, I did like med surge, neuro, trauma ICU, neuro ICU, cardiac, open heart, psych, newborn, oncology, like my variety, my experience in different types of cases is what I brought into that organization. Also, the type of diagnosis related groups, because there's different types. There's one called Medicare Severity, DRG, and then there's another one, I forgot what it's abbreviated, but it's APR, All Patient Refined, APR, All Patient Refined, DRG. I knew how to work with those because my organization was one of the first organizations in Florida to work with those type of claims. So when they, so now the organization started to do APR DRGs. And I think that's why they hired me, because I told them, oh, I have experience in APRs and SOR, severity of illness and risk of mortality. I knew how to review a claim like that and knew how to navigate that type of specific DRG. I knew what it would take to get to a certain severity level with that. So that was one of the biggest attributes that I brought in. I think also my boss says, look, my current boss now, because we change, I always change team leaders. Is like, look, you're just easygoing. People can complain, but I know when we have issues, I know it works itself out eventually, and I'm willing to wait. So patience is another thing too. Like, okay, I'll wait for the problem to solve, because it's out of my hands. If I have no control of it, why am I stressing? Right. If it's out of my hands, why am I stressing? That's one thing that creates a lot of anxiety. If you're out of control of the situation, I mean, I deal with anxiety. If I can't control it, I get super anxious, where I start to have a panic attack, but I've learned to know that if I can't control it, I need to let it go. So that's some of the attributes that I think I bring to the organization. Just being level-headed. Just try to be as level-headed. Anticipate my repertoire. I always say you always want to carry what you have in your next position. Carry it like a tool belt. Like, okay, this is what I bring for you guys. I bring good gifts for your organization. So.
Right. Okay. Next question: What role in the knowledge of medical terminology does this impact your job duties and functions?
A lot. So you're taking medical terminology. I'll tell you, it's a very fundamental class that you need to have to recognize procedures and diagnoses. Fundamental. Like, you need to. I just answered this question on a YouTube video where somebody asked me, how do you identify what the main term is so that way I can code it? And I answered, your medical terminology. Because if you, it's not about knowing what that condition is, it's your ability to know that is a condition. That is this procedure, that this is dealing with this. You don't have to know what the patient presented with. You don't need to know what the treatment is. You don't need to know what they need to test for yet. That's what medical terminology takes out of the equation. It's not pathophysiology yet. You see? So medical terminology only it teaches you how to identify what is a diagnosis, what is a procedure. Now, in my line of work, you do that frequently. And a lot. You do it a lot. So in one case, it's not just one condition, but multiple conditions. So how are you able to leverage your medical terminology to identify and skim through pages and pages and pages and pages of medical records? Like, I could average between 100 pages to 500 pages to 1,000 pages to the highest I had was a 10,000 page medical record, right? So it's not to say that I'm going to review the whole thing, but I know how to go through 1,000 pages and take out exactly what I need, because everything else is just fluff. But I'm able to skim through like a needle in a haystack. You can go through a haystack and like, oh, I found it. Oh, I found this. Oh, I found that. Oh, I found this.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it together and then make a decision on that. So that's what medical terminology will do for you. That will be in preparation for your medical coding courses. Because when they teach you in medical coding is how to identify the main term. How do I find what I need to code to assign this? What diagnosis do I need to find in order to assign this specific, diagnosis code? But then you have to, my answer is always go back to medical terminology. Because if you don't know what to code, then you don't know what you're looking for. And so this class helps you find what you need to look for, because it's all about in coding, you're looking through pages and pages. You're not reading line by line. You're not. You're going, you're analyzing. I'm not reading, I'm analyzing real fast. And you speed through your process. It's like exercise.
Right.
But then I apply this everywhere. I apply this on social media. I apply this on banking. I apply this, you know, on, let's say, for example, the COVID trends. You know, like you apply this analytical thinking
Mm.
everywhere. So it's really the basis of coding, but then really the basis of analytical thinking as well.
What is the importance of education in your career, and what additional coursework do you recommend to enhance knowledge and expertise?
Okay, so that goes back to our to what we initially talked about, right? So you're going to associates, okay? And this really answers what I wanted to talk about last night. So your associates will prepare you to be someone in the field, coder, technician, specialist, right? Those are people
Mm.
that are hired as the staff of a department to teach you the ins and outs of the actual department itself. You're not overseeing the department, you're doing the work of the department. Get
Okay.
it? So that's what you'll get out of the associates level course.
Okay.
Okay. When you get to bachelor's, it's more like, okay, you will be taught what is expected and what is needed for the department, but then you will also be taught the next level up, the supervisory, the management, the program overview. Like you know what this department is doing, but where is it going? And how does it affect other departments?
Okay.
You see, it widens out your
Mm-hmm.
scope a little. It doesn't widen your scope, but it widens your thinking to look beyond what your department does.
Right.
And that goes into talking about your external customers, your internal customers, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
type. You've been in customer service, you would kind of understand that, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what you do in your department, but then as a department supervisor, you're handling and managing your department. But if you're a director, you're going higher and above and
Mm-hmm.
beyond, and then taking it and trickling it down to your supervisors, and then taking that down to your staff. So
Right.
what you'll learn in your bachelor's is just that, how to
Okay.
handle things above and beyond what your department does, in the
Okay.
point that you can actually take it back down. It's not like you're going way over and above and beyond. You're just going just above, so that way you're still grounded within your own department, which is in HIM or medical coding or
Mm-hmm.
CDI. But yeah, to answer your question, additional education, yes, but not in the form of a degree. I mean, you can go for another degree, yes, but you can also gain education through networking with other people. I mean, again, when I
Okay.
got into CDI, I had no clinical experience. How did I get my clinical experience? You may ask. Talking with nurses for 12 years, talking with physicians for 12 years, 12 years of being trained by good nurses, hands on nursing, hands on
Mm-hmm.
physician work, asking them questions for 12 years. I think that's more valuable than getting a nursing degree. Way more valuable. I don't have to, uh, you know, drop what I do. I didn't have
Right.
to drop my job. I didn't have to uh, take away time from my family. I did this on the job, you know, and I
Yeah.
went to also social media. I asked people questions in the industry. I go to also professional associations for education, because they also offer, because when you get your credential, you need to have continuing education credits. So the
Right.
education that you receive to maintain your credential also applies into, you want to apply it to what you're doing in your work. Because some people grab, like, continuing education credits that are totally unrelated to what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why are you learning about stuff that you're not going to be applying, or they get certifications that they don't need? If you're not doing that work, if that's not your direction, don't get stuff that's not in your direction, you know? So that pretty much is how I would do it. I mean, education is everywhere, but you don't necessarily need a degree to advance your educational knowledge. Just It's everywhere, even on the internet. You could just
Right.
it's just a matter. I think what's the most important is what you do with it. You may have it,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're not using it,
Why did you obtain it in the first place?
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you define personal success on the job?
Success. I think when you're happy, when you're happy in the role, when you're
Yeah,
happy in what you do, and you're making other people happy because of it. And another factor is, are you having fun? Which is really a word that doesn't necessarily click with what I do. It's not fun, but I somehow make it fun because I talk about it. I vent about it. When I vent about it, I think it's more fun to vent about it, and let people relate to what you're venting about. That's what makes it
right.
fun. But I think, if you're happy, if you're really happy and you're having fun, I don't
Like
have
you're
this.
enjoying what you do.
Yes, and because you're having fun and you're happy, it fuels your passion for the position, for the role, for your career. If you're not happy or having fun, it's not fueling your passion. And without that fuel, then you get a sense of why people leave the profession. They give up. Like,
Right.
I couldn't find a job. Well, if that's defeating your passion, why you got into the position in the first place, then that shouldn't stop you from being passionate about the profession. Because a lot of people who leave the profession is because they can't get into the profession. And they ask me,
Hmm.
well, how do you do that? Well, I'm telling you what to do now. But they don't
Yeah.
realize that networking is a big factor in all of this. Because I just did an interview with somebody. Like, you could be smart, you could pass the test with like a 100% on everything, get a certification, be 100% in that, but nobody cares if you get a 100% on your certification. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a damn. But you could be smart, but then you can't find a job.
Hmm.
There's something missing.
Missing.
Yeah, there's something missing that you don't have, that you should try to, number one, realize that you're lacking, accept that you're lacking. That number two is like, the number two is important, is accepting that you're lacking in that. And number three, doing something to fix that, you
Hmm.
know? So people, like, they ask me, how do you network? Well, you're doing it now. Just continue that process. And people think solving it will solve the problem overnight. It doesn't. It's a long-term process. You have to,
Yeah.
you have to look.
Be patient.
Yes, be patient. And that's why I tell people, don't even look for the position, because if you stress yourself out, I think when you connect with people and you're stressed out, I can feel it.
Yes.
I can feel it. I'm like, I don't know. Like when people are apprehensive, it's like, do I do I want to spend the time and energy trying to unravel that? To tell you the truth, like, I'm very busy. But when I connected with you, like, okay, there's a bit of apprehensiveness, but when I threw out another, like, could you do this? And you're like, yeah, I can. Okay, all right. So you're a person that you're able to work with. You see,
Yeah.
so like, versus like, oh, no, 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 I can't do that. I
Yeah.
can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, I can't work with you if you're not open to change. If you're not
Yeah.
open and willing to work with each other, because ultimately it's going to benefit both of us. It's a win-win situation.
Right. Yes. Okay. What what values and or skills should a person possess in order to be successful in your field?
Um, clinical skills, for sure. Uh, I think for you, when you get into the program, challenge what you what you're receiving in your clinical courses. Don't you have that in your class? Some type of medical science, or like a pathophysiology class, I think. It's something beyond anatomy and physiology. Or was anatomy and physiology it that you received?
Or I've taken that already.
Yeah, but in the HIT program, is there another, like, medical, diagnostic, pathophysiology, medical science class that you would be taking?
I'm trying to think. I
Maybe.
think the only one might be survey of disease.
Okay, good. Yes. That one.
Yeah.
That one. Challenge yourself in that class. Don't accept what you're receiving by the instructor.
Okay.
Always, I would take advantage of that class. Not just the fact that like what I'm trying to say is don't accept what the teacher's accepting you as enough.
Okay.
What you want to the way the mindset that you want to have going into that class is you want more. You want to expect more out of that class, because that class is essentially something that would distinguish you, not exactly, but somewhat of a similarity of what nursing classes should be at.
Okay.
You should be able to walk away to be able to look at a person and diagnose a person right on the spot. Like you should know, like, okay, based upon their symptoms, that this patient may have this condition, this patient should get this test, and this patient should receive this treatment. You see? So that's how you should walk away from that disease process. Because a lot of people who take that class, they just like, okay, I received that education, and it just does that. And then when they get to medical terminology, it's like, I'm sorry, when they get to medical coding, it's like, they don't appreciate that.
They can't retrieve.
Yes. Like, then they have these issues of, okay, I see it. They're just going to be like, okay, if I see it documented, I'm just going to code it. That's how I'm going to approach this medical coding class. You see? So they bypass disease, the survey of disease. They go to medical terminology. They come with a, what's the word? A quick fix to pass the class is just to code what is documented by the physician and not question if the patient has it or not, because that leverages you with the disease process. So that's what I would definitely. What question is that? The number 6. No, where are we at? Number 9.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Or no?
No, number 9. Number 9 is it, at least in your class, clinical, but you would do that through your disease process. I would challenge that highly. The instructor, whoever's in it, you want to go in there wanting more. Like, ask questions. This is your chance to ask questions. A lot of questions. Don't sit there and just accept the teaching. Question everything in the class, because that to me is the crux of everything that you want if you decide to go into coding, and if you want to go pursue yourself into clinical documentation integrity. Because if you don't leverage that course, you're just going to be like, oh, you need an RN. But then, if I was in your situation and I took advantage of that course and I got into an interview for CDI, I would, kind of take that disease process knowledge and bring that into the interview. But you won't have it as strong unless you challenge that course, challenge yourself in the course. Like you need to observe so much. That to me is such an important class. Medical coding is easy only if you have the survey of disease challenged. Like you're passionate in that area, will help you be passionate in medical coding.
Okay.
Yeah.
State your own personal and professional opinion of the person
that's you
interviewed and whether or not the interview changed your opinion.
I think that's for you.
Okay.
That's for you. So I guess I'm going to ask you that question. How do you feel? How do you feel about me professionally? Has anything that I have talked about changed the way you think or the way you think about the profession in any way? So has this experience kind of opened your eyes to what you can do, what your potential is in your field in health information technology?
It has definitely given me some insight. And
what kind of I'm gonna probe some more. What kind of insight do you think made a difference, at least in this interview?
I think just the differences in departments, you could say, like how you are in a hospital, but now you're looking at it from another angle, from another perspective, from another department.
Yeah.
That to me is like where I would analyze that, if looking at it, if I'm working and I'm doing a job that maybe doesn't require so much of me, but then there's so much that I'm doing in the moment that actually affects some other department on the other side. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's just looking at that. That's what is insightful to me. How my job, even
Yes.
if I
Mhm.
start off somewhere in the bottom, which I
Mm,
feel like I am at
mm.
some right when I graduate, I'm gonna have to, be patient and get something that maybe might not pay me what I want, or but I feel like my job is gonna have an impact on someone else's role in somewhere else in another department. I don't
Right.
know if that makes
No,
sense.
no, no, no. I agree with that because one of the because we have what is it, mid-year evaluations in my job, and one of the questions that my boss asked me is, what is it that you want out of this position? I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, you're giving me a good paycheck, so I have nothing to complain. Right? So I told her, I think, and you said it, and the way I'm answering it is I want to know, and I've always done this. I want to know what happens beyond what I do,
Yeah.
right? So I'm currently an auditor. And I told her, I said, I would like to know, like I'm just
Yeah.
doing the letters. I want to know what happens after what I do and where it goes and what that
Yes.
process is. So that way, everything to me, at least in my career, has always been what goes beyond with what I do. Look,
Hmm.
going outside of the box. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you expand yourself, if you're open to change and you go expand outside of the box, the potentials in HIT is boundless. Because if you're just limited into just, okay, I just want to be a coder, I just want to be in health information management, that's good to start, but don't stay there, right?
Hmm.
You want to take yourself outside of the box of HIM, such as CDI, denials, appeals, auditing, information, informatics, data analytics, compliance,
Hmm.
even like legal issues, fraud, abuse, waste, all of that stuff. There's so much stuff. But I think when you get into where I am in the revenue cycle process, like once you go beyond the hospital, the medical coding, to the billing. Once you get to where I am, then once you get outside of the hospital, the doors open so much more. Like I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know all of this was here. You know?
Yeah, that's so interesting to
Yeah.
me. Like, it's like having that curiosity and having that thought process to think and just basically to be curious and explore what other avenues are
Mm-hmm.
there
Mm-hmm.
to challenge yourself also,
Yeah.
to grow as a person too. Because if you stay in the same mentality and the same state of mind, and if I didn't agree to do this with you, I would have just probably ended up, I don't even know what I would have
Yeah.
done,
I know,
because
right?
I reached out to the director too of the program, and I think she's on vacation, and she didn't respond either. So I don't know if I didn't like commit to myself and to you, to have this dialogue through virtual media, then I could have honestly just said no. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not ready for it. I'm too shy. I'm not very I'm not a good communicator.
I
I'm
think you
gonna
are.
freak out, and like, I would have just stayed in my box. But
Mm-hmm.
and you hear my voice, it's like a little bit like stuttery, a little shaky, but I mean, I feel like I'm benefiting so much just by speaking to you,
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that itself is just, it makes you break out of your box. It makes you break out of your bubble,
Mm-hmm.
out of, like, it's just
You got to
in the
do it
moment.
early. Yeah. You
In
got
the
to do it
moment, it does
early.
make you feel. I'm not gonna lie. In the moment, it did make me feel. When you sent me that message about like videoing it, I was like, no.
I was anticipating you would say no, but if you had said yes, like, okay, I'm gonna, if, because it's like, if the student is willing to meet me halfway, if they want to work for this assignment, they got to work for this assignment,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna give you over and beyond what your assignment asks for, because
Yeah.
we look at the time,
Yeah.
look at the
I
time.
know.
It's 2 plus 2 hours of content.
Yeah.
And so you could take away this I'm going to give you this recording
Okay.
unedited, so you could listen to the whole thing. I think there's also an audio portion that I'm going to give you too,
Okay.
so you could listen to this. So you don't have to watch all of this. So you could do this as you're cleaning, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And then I will edit this down, because this is a lot. Oh my God. I didn't expect this to
Yeah.
be 2.5 hours long. Because this is way longer than my podcast. It goes up to like maybe 2 hours. So this is way longer. I might have to break this up into like, you just gave me content for like 3 to 4 weeks.
No way.
Yeah, you did. So much. But what else? Is there anything else there? But yeah, I'm glad it opened your eyes, because it also tells me I need to do more of this, because there are
Yes.
students like yourself who um, feel this way.
Yes.
And I think now because I think you're the first one that I set the criteria. It's like, if you want to interview me, you gotta come here on
Yeah.
Zoom. And I'm glad you did, because it's like, okay, good. Now you got your assignment done, but also you got some mentoring done. You got a little bit more than what you bargained. And now you have a connection, you have a network connection. And so I would like to kind of follow you through your process as you get into HIT. Stay connected with me, not just with me, but also continue that
Mhm.
process again. This is just
Yeah.
one of many that you can do. So if you did this with me, imagine who you could do with others, like, okay.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I should challenge myself and do it every semester at least with one person,
Yeah, at
go out
least.
into the field.
Yeah.
And like I saw the video where you were saying like people should be doing this early on. Like don't
Mhm.
wait till you
You
graduate. Don't
graduate.
wait
Yeah.
to yeah, like it may be hard at first because it's like but like you said, it's better that you get out that fear
Those
or
jitters. Mm-hmm.
yeah, now than later because it's gonna make you or break you once you do end up
Mm-hmm.
looking for a job.
It's like my I have to bring up my daughter. My daughter, she loves to cook, right? And so she has I don't know what's up with her timing, but she likes to cook something new for an event, like a holiday, like a party, and but this was
Without
early on.
prepping or getting it ready.
Yeah, like not practicing it. Like this is
Yeah,
her
yeah.
first shot of making this dish for this party. Like she thought it was, something nice to do. And I'm like, have you made this before? And she's like, no. So there was one dish that she had made. It's like a crepe cake. I don't know if you heard of that. A crepe cake. So basically you're making crepes, very thin
Mhm.
pancakes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're layering on some type of frosting. You do it again.
Uh-huh.
45 layers. So she did it. And then I'm like, oh, it doesn't look like the picture, like, what you think it should be and what the actual should be. And I took a picture and I'm like, oh, this is not right. And so I had to fix it. I had to help her make all the crepes. But it's like that, like if you had done this before, like I was trying to teach her, if you had make it a teachable moment, if you had done this before the actual event, if you don't prepare yourself for this type of scenarios, like interviewing others, you're going
Mhm.
to fail early on, and you don't want to fail later. You want to fail early, right? Get it out of
Yes.
the way, get all of the mistakes, get all of your jitters. I know you're feeling nervous now and stuff like that. You could listen to yourself too. That's what is
Yeah.
important, is that now we have established, I have diagnosed you. We have a baseline now of how you interview with others. And imagine, watch, years down the line, I'm going to ask you to come back, and then watch how proficient and more,
How
how open you
different, huh?
communicate. Yes. Have you ever listened to my first podcast? You should listen to it. It's horrendous, terrible, because I didn't know how to ask questions. I didn't know how to transition. I didn't know how to speak. It's like I was like kind of like swimming through this conversation. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
ask. So now you notice it's very fluid. Like, I know when to stop. I know when to stop for you to speak. I know when to speak when you stop,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, like you said, organic,
yeah,
right? Like
organic
kind of like,
conversation. Yeah.
yeah,
Nothing scripted. It's like, okay, let's just do it because
like flow, let it flow, right?
yes, the flow has gotten so much better. And so when you do this with other people, your flow, when you have a good flow, people will ride the wave.
Yeah.
They'll vibe with you very well in the conversation to the point that that's where connection is made.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how you practice doing all of this stuff. So I'm glad you did this early on.
Yeah.
MedicalCodingGeek.com